great to be back in Spartanburg. You know, as you go through this process, there are certain people that when they come back to you and they say they want to help, it matters when you know that they're just a good, honest person. Gresham Barrett's just a good man of God. He's a good man as a friend. You've been a great congressman, and you've been a great servant to South Carolina. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Gresham. I appreciate you. Thank you. So it's a great night in South Carolina. You know, I think about all that we've been through together. We went through a lot. When I came in as governor, we had 11% unemployment. We had thousands of people on welfare. South Carolina was the butt of the jokes. And what did we do together? We rallied. And by the time I left, we had moved that 11% unemployment to 4%. We were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz. We brought in Volvo, 5 international tire companies. They were referring to us as the beast of the Southeast, which I love. We acknowledged some truths. We said if you have to show picture ID to get on a plane, if you have to show picture ID to buy Sudafed, you should have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. We passed voter ID in South Carolina. We passed tort reform, we passed pension reform, and we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. President Obama sued us over it, and we won. We did that together. We cut taxes, we built our coffers, and we were proud. And by the time I left, we were named the friendliest state in the country, the most patriotic state in the country. And don't blame me for this one. We were named the #2 state in the country people were moving to. And now this has been a journey. It's been a year since I announced for president, almost in a few days, a year. And you look at everything that's happened. We had 14 people in the race. Now we've gotten through a dozen of them. We just have one more fella we got to catch up to. And our goal was always to build. We started with 2% in Iowa. We ended up with 20%. We went to New Hampshire. They said we were going to be down by 30. We got 43% of the vote. But more importantly, if Donald Trump is the Republican incumbent, so to speak, the more important part is he didn't get 43% of the vote. That says a lot. And you look at what happened that night. He was clearly upset that I got 43% of the vote. He had a total temper tantrum, was unhinged. And all he did was talk about revenge. And then you look at the next day, and what did he say? He said, anyone that supports Nikki Haley will be barred permanently from MAGA. Yay. We had some fun with that, so we did some T-shirts that said barred permanently. We sold 20,000 T-shirts. It was amazing. Then you go the next day, and he pushes the Republican Party to name him the presumptive nominee. Now, come on, we don't do coronations in this country. It takes 1,215 delegates to become president. He has 32, I have 17. Only 2 states have voted. South Carolinians deserve the right to vote in this election. 48 states and more territories to go. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to finish this. So the Republican Party got pushed back and they retracted. And then the next day there was a court case. And he didn't do well in the court case. And I haven't honestly paid attention to the court cases one way or the other, but I know that he didn't do well. And he went on another rant. And all he did was talk about being a victim. And this is the problem I have. Whether it was the night of New Hampshire, whether it was after this court case, he never once talked about the American people. He never once talked about the fact that we are $34 trillion in debt. He never once talked about the fact that we don't have kids, that we only have 31% of 8th graders in our country who are proficient in reading. He never once talked about the lawlessness at the border that's out of control. He never once talked about how we were going to bring law and order back to our streets in our cities. He never once talked about the wars that were going on around the world. He never once talked about anything but himself. And then the disclosures come out yesterday, the campaign disclosures. And he has spent $50 million of campaign donations on legal fees for her personal court cases. Think about that. And he, with his own mouth, said he's going to be in a courtroom more time than he's going to be able to campaign. We are a country in disarray. The world is on fire. We need to know we've got someone focused and ready for the job. We can't be distracted any further. When America's distracted, the world is less safe, and we're seeing that happen. And then you go and you see who he surrounds himself with. He surrounds himself with the political elite in D.C., all the congressional members. The same congressional members that have done nothing for us. The same congressional members who haven't secured the border, who have been wasting our money, who've been stealing from your Social Security, every one of those, he's been standing with them. And why are they not standing with me? Probably because I've said I think we need to have term limits in Washington, D.C. Maybe it's because I've said that congressional members shouldn't be able to trade in the stock market while they're holding office. Maybe it's because we think they should have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. Now, I'm not being disrespectful when I say that. We all know 75-year-olds that can run circles around us. And then we know Joe Biden. Congress has become the most privileged nursing home in the country. These are people making decisions on our national security. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. We need to know they're at the top of their game. I don't care if you do it for 50 and up. We need to know who we've got up there and that they're working for us. So I think that's why the congressional political establishment is not going to stand with me, and I don't want them, right? Then you go, and the South Carolina political establishment surrounds him. And I have a reporter that says, but what do you say about the fact that South Carolina's governor is standing with President Trump? And I said, oh, you mean the one I defeated when I ran for governor? That one? Right? And then they were like, but what about, all of those legislators that are standing around him? And I said, oh, you mean the ones that I forced to show their votes on the record instead of hiding behind voice votes? You mean the ones that I forced them to disclose their income so that every taxpayer could see who was paying them? You mean the ones that I vetoed $500 million worth of their pet projects because I didn't think taxpayers needed to pay for them? Yeah, you can say that they can be with them because I don't want them either. And then there's Tim Scott. But you know what? I'm just going to let that one lie there. Everybody has to sleep with their decisions. He can sleep with that one. So you look at that, That's not what I've ever wanted. I didn't want the political establishment when I ran for governor. I don't want the political establishment now. That's not who I'm working for. I want to make sure that the American people, for once, feel like government is serving them instead of them working for government. That's our goal. And you look at the situation. And look at where the political establishment has gotten us. We are $34 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. And I've always spoken in hard truths to you, and I'm going to do that with you tonight. I would love to say that Biden did that to us. But our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that they passed with no accountability. They expanded welfare to where we now have 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. And did Republicans try and make it right? No. They opened up pet projects and earmarks for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last December. Want to know how they spent your money? $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million to tear down a hotel in Alaska, $7.5 million on a courthouse in Colorado. And the list goes on. In the 2024 appropriations budget, Republicans put in $7.4 billion worth of pet projects. Democrats put in $2.8 billion. Now you tell me who the big spenders are. All while 1 in 6 American families can't afford their utility bill. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. And Congress has one job, just one job, to give us a budget on time. Do you know Congress has only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? Do you know what I say to that? When I get up there, you don't give us a budget on time, you don't get paid, period. So the way we'll take care of our economy is let's start by clawing back the $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still sitting out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the pet projects, and I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. Then we will take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the state level. That will reduce the size of the federal government, but it will empower people on the ground. Think education, think welfare, think healthcare, think mental health. If we cut the strings and allow the states to use those resources, they can better use it the way the state needs. And then we're seeing the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And the middle class is evaporating. We're going to start focusing on the middle class. That's why I want to eliminate the gas and diesel tax in this country. Let's cut taxes on the middle class and simplify the brackets. And let's make small business tax cuts permanent. They made them temporary. We need to make them permanent. Small businesses like this place, they're the heartbeat of our economy. We need to start acting like it. Then you look at education. Yes, only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. Only 27% of 8th graders are proficient in math. If we don't do something and do something quick, we're going to be in a world of trouble 10 years from now. Now, we knew in South Carolina, if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So under our education reform, we stopped pushing them forward and we started holding them back. We brought in their parents, we did reading remediation, and we set them up for success. We've got to do that all over our country. We have got to get our kids reading again. And no parent should wonder what's being said or taught to their child in school. We need complete transparency in the classroom. We will put every curriculum online so that parents can see it. And parents know their children the best. Parents should be the ones deciding which school their child goes to or what mode of education they get. Let's give complete control to parents so that they can make that decision. And for too long with education, every state and all the groups have listened to school boards. They've listened to administrators. The day we start listening to those teachers in the classroom is the day that we will fix education. And let's start building things in America. Let's put vocational classes back into our high schools. And as a point of personal privilege, to all you strong moms out there and all you girl dads, we love our boys, but we have to raise strong girls, because strong girls become strong women, and strong women become strong leaders, and none of that happens if we have biological boys playing in girls' sports. We've got to cut that out. We've got to cut it out. And when it comes to the border, 8.5 million illegal immigrants have come to that border. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. #1 cause of death for adults 18 to 45, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. We've got to put an end to it. Now, I told you, together, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. We need to do that nationwide. We did an E-Verify. Well, let's do a national E-Verify, where businesses have to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. Then let's defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens in America. We'll put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. Let's go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That's how we will put an end to what happens in the border. Now, if you look at the news on what's happening with the border, and they've talked about a border deal, there's two things wrong with what's happening. First of all, I agree with the fact that they strengthen the asylum laws. We need to do that. I don't like the fact that it doesn't include Remain in Mexico, and I don't like the fact that it has a 5,000 person threshold. We don't need to let one person across the border. They need to stop that. We need to vet every person that comes across and know who's here. But this is the problem I have. Bless you. The problem I have is the fact that here you have President Trump telling Congress, don't pass anything until after the election. We can't wait. We need them to do something now. America's acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like. It only takes one person to cause a problem. And Congress, once again, as a do-nothing Congress, they should not leave D.C. until they figure this out. They need to get it right. If you're going to do it right. And you know, growing up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, a small, sweet town, my parents always taught me, you take care of those who take care of you. But I'm going to ask you if we're taking care of those who take care of us. Right now in America, over 35,000 veterans are homeless. 1 in 3 suffers from PTSD or thoughts of suicide. We lose 22 heroes a day to suicide. If a veteran needs a doctor's appointment, on average, takes 29 days. Why 29 days? Because on the 30th day, they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. So midway through the 29 days, they get a call to reschedule, and the clock starts all over again. It's shameful how we treat our veterans. Now, I'm the proud wife of a combat veteran. Michael deployed to Afghanistan. And when he came home to us, that was a lot of prayers answered. But that was the easy part. When we got home, life got hard. Michael couldn't hear loud noises. He couldn't be in crowds. Life had passed him by for the year that he was gone, and the transition was tough. We can't just love our men and women when they're gone. We got to love them when they come back home, too. That's why we need to make sure that we don't just do a 2-week transition. We take care of them for the long haul. Let's have telehealth so they get the mental health care they need right when they need it. They should be able to go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. They've earned that right. And I think the best way we take care of the VA health care, I think every member of Congress should have to get their health care from the VA, and you watch how fast that gets fixed. It'll be the best health care you've ever seen, guaranteed, I promise. And there were 2 things that Russia, China, and Iran never wanted us to have when I was at the UN. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We won't just be energy independent, we'll be energy dominant. We will get the EPA out of the way. Right now they care more about sagebrush lizards and whether we can afford our utility bill. We will speed up our permitting. We will open up our pipelines, including the Keystone Pipeline. We will export as much liquefied natural gas as we can. Let's export that liquefied natural gas. Let's do nuclear power. Let's do anything and everything to make sure that we're energy dominant. No more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia. No more getting dirty oil from Iran or Venezuela. And let's not just do what's sufficient for America. Let's turn our energy sector into an economic powerhouse. That's how you reduce inflation. That's how you pay down our debt. That's how we'll build our coffers, is when we do that, and we do it in a common sense way where we partner with our producers instead of demonizing them. This is a matter of national security. But let's also talk about the other aspects of national security. The world is on fire, literally. You've got a war in Europe. You've got a war in the Middle East. You've got North Korea testing intercontinental ballistic missiles that are capable of hitting the U.S. You've got China on the march. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that my husband and his military brothers and sisters who served there had to watch us leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that said to our friends. More importantly, think about what that said to our enemies. And now you look at this situation with Iran that's happening. It didn't have to happen. You look at the fact that Biden lifted up the sanctions, trying to get back into the Iran deal, and all of that money from China importing their oil went into the coffers of Hamas that invaded Israel, went into the coffers of Hezbollah that continues to fire at Israel, went into the coffers in Iraq and Syria that's been shooting our soldiers, went into the coffers of the Houthis that are now clogging up our supply chain in the Red Sea. All of that happened because Biden lifted the sanctions. And if that's the case, what bothers me more, America's supposed to take care of our men and women overseas. Biden didn't do anything after the first strike. He didn't do anything after the second strike. It took 165 strikes. 3 soldiers died. 2 Navy SEALs died. And now you're going to do something about it? After dozens of brain injuries to our people, now you're going to do something about it? So, yeah, I welcome the fact that he's wanting to do something. But a president should always prevent war, not start war. His actions are starting a war. When I was at the United Nations, I told countries what America was for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. That's what we need to do in our national security, is to let countries know what we expect of them and stop being reactionary. We can take all of this on, but not by putting our heads in the sand, but by being strong and making sure that we know exactly who our enemies are and how we're going to deal with them. So we have the answers on the domestic side. We have the answers on the national security side. Now we just have to acknowledge some hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That is nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we send a new generational conservative leader to the White House, leaving the negativity and the baggage behind and going forward. Another hard truth. I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But the problem is, chaos follows him wherever he goes. You know I'm right. Chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. The other side of it is, we need to win. And you look at the fact that all of these general election polls, any of them, Trump loses to Biden by 7 points. He loses to Biden by 9 points. In the best situation, it's margin of error. He can't win a general election. We will have a female president of the United States. Hard truth, it will either be me or Kamala Harris. And that's a fact, because he can't win a general election. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. We lost in 2022. How many times do we have to lose because of one person before we say, maybe we don't need that fella anymore? We're there. And in every one of those general election polls that I just told you about, I defeat Biden by up to 17 points. That's bigger than a presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's school board. That's us turning an entire page on our government to get it back on track. You win by double digits. That's a mandate going into D.C. to stop the wasteful spending and get our economy back on track. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our borders with no more excuses. That's a mandate for law and order in our cities, and that's a mandate for a strong America that we can all be proud of. Don't you want that? Because we could have that. But in order to do that, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from everyone here. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to know, don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't play in this primary. It matters. Seven months ago, I dropped my husband Michael off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to fight for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. When I announced I was running, they asked me why I was doing this. And I said, you know, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for Michael and his military brothers and sisters because I want them to know their sacrifice matters. I want them to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. The average home buyer in America now is 49 years old. The American dream is leaving them. And I'm doing this for my son who's a senior in college. And I am tired of watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That is not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 81% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. We do have a country to save. So we have a choice. Now, there are a lot of people who only vote in a general election. And if you vote in a general election, you are given a choice. If you vote in a primary, you make your choice. That's the importance of voting in a primary. And when you go to the polls, the choice is, do we want to do more of the same, or do we want to go forward? More of the same is not just Joe Biden, it's Donald Trump. 70% of Americans have said they don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans don't like Joe Biden, and the majority of Americans don't like Donald Trump. Both of those men put us trillions of dollars in debt that our kids are never going to forgive us for. And do we really want to focus on 2 candidates in their 80s to be president when we need someone that's going to focus on the next 8 years getting our country back on track? So Spartanburg, we've done this before. We've done it twice before when you elected me governor. Now I'm asking you to do it once again. If you will make sure that when you leave here, take a yard sign when you go get 5 friends and tell them to early vote. Get everyone you know to pay attention to this primary. Because if you do that, this is my promise to you. If you join our movement, yes, I know you're going to tell me there's a card. Yes. You have these cards. Fill them out. If you want to volunteer, if you want to help, if you want to help us spread the word, be a part of this campaign, we would appreciate it. If you get involved in this, I will do the same thing I did when I was governor. I will spend every single day proving to you that you made a good decision. Let's do this. Let's rally. God bless you. Thank you very much.